Hey, Mike, this is a bit of a different structure and flow that, at least that I'm used to. I've done this a few times, but we're going to do a bit of a joint interview, jump back and forth, and so forth. But at least the listeners on my show will not let me off the hook if I don't ask you the "Who are you?" question before we get into what you do and job titles and so forth. So, who are you, brother?
My name is Mike Schwarz. I've been a serial entrepreneur for 25 years, building dot com companies in the early 2000s in the event industry. And I recently became an AI consultant, a coach, and I've been spinning up new AI SaaS companies. So, serial entrepreneur, 25 years. When I started, I had more hair than you. And now this is where I am. And born in Squamish, BC, working out of my office here in Burnaby. You can see a little bit of I'm up on the 36th floor out here on sort of low heat in Wellington. And I'm CEO of My Zone AI. I do a lot of traveling, public speaking, workshops now. The main audience I speak to are CEOs of small businesses. So a lot of work through EO and YPO.
Hmm.
And I just nerd out on AI 12 to 14 hours a day.
I love it. I love it. Well, we're going to break down. I mean, I think at least the plan is to do a bit of like a state of the union around AI and like I think there's all the stuff that people are speaking about on the surface level, but like what's really going on and some of the questions maybe we should take a pause and start asking so we can, instead of being, trying to play catch up, actually be a part of this, I think, beautiful world of new creation and so forth. So and then on my side, like the mental fitness and like making sure that our minds are actually able and have capacity to, ideate and think and see different paths and actually take advantage of all of this stuff. Like that's where my interest is in kind of the intersects of these two worlds as well. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to jam.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to get into the mind part of things because we are seeing adoption on a very uneven basis. There's like 1 to 5% that truly get it, and if we can figure out what are those mental blocks that are preventing the masses from making that transition, I'm hoping you can crack some new discoveries in my mind there about that. But for the sake of my few listeners, I'm not as popular yet as you. Hopefully, growing quickly. Can tell me a bit about you, your business model, your show, your book. Would love to hear a bit more.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, for me, I spent a good decade or so in the corporate world in like sales and product management and brand management, and then always had some what I wouldn't have called this mental fitness in the past, but I had some practices, especially in sales, that were just designed to inject positive material essentially in my head to stay motivated and give time to think and process, which I was just picking up reading people's biographies and blog posts and like Success Magazine and things like that. I'm like, oh, all these people that we're reading about or studying, it seems like they have these practices, just like slow down and surprise, surprise, think, right? And ask questions. And the long story short is after about, like I said, around a decade of being in that world, I got to a point where a question surfaced for me, and it was like, how do people not know about this, or why don't more people know about these? It seemed like little superpowers, and I'm not, anything special here. I'm just picking up what I'm reading, but it was been just transformational and so helpful in the work that I was doing. And that's what like catapulted me into being directly in this mental fitness space. And we launched at the time one of the first guided mental fitness apps and journaling apps, which was wild, reached almost 90 million people in the first couple of years without any kind of advertising or paid media. It was just like collaborations and Apple features and so forth. So it was a good signal around, okay, like people are clearly interested in learning more. And that spun into this show, Behind the Human, to just bring stories to uh, like what what do people do across all industries when your mind starts to go off the rails or you're faced with really challenging times personally and professionally and proactively? Like what can you do, whether that's, someone in tech or like Tony Hawk or, Olympians or Billy, like I don't care who it is. Everyone has a mind and they're all doing something. And that's what the show turned into, to just let's just learn from each other and see what we can apply and so forth. And it just continues to kind of like expand from there, because I just think at the core, business aside, that we just as human beings deserve to wake up feeling good more days than not. And it's very much possible if you have some of these practices, no different than if you have a physical fitness routine. Like we all know that exercise is probably a good thing for the body, and same thing with exercising the mind. You just need to find what works. And then everyone benefits because you like that's when you can tap into the stuff that you're doing and even your clients around, okay, like yeah, I can do that, but you can't capitalize on all of the awesome in the world, including the memories with our kids and loved ones and so forth, if you're just in this high state of stress and worry all the time, which is what I see most people in.
And the timing for what you're doing couldn't be better. I would guess the need for mental fitness has only been growing exponentially thanks to the pandemic, thanks to social media, thanks to the swiping culture, the disconnect from friends, and there's just all sorts of mental health issues. And at the same time, now we have this massive amplifier, which is artificial intelligence, which is a
Yeah.
change agent, 10 times more powerful than the invention of the internet. So to say that people are going through stressful, confusing times, feeling completely overwhelmed. And meanwhile, I'm like, why are we not adopting faster? You're like, well, these are
Yeah,
probably predominantly mental health related questions.
for sure. And what's so it the challenge is definitely growing. What's shocking and where I think our worlds intersect or where there's a lot of similarity is even though the data is so clear. Like there was a time at one point where no one was speaking about their mental health and so forth, but that's not the case anymore. And there's just more and more data to show, obviously put your mind first, that results follow. But it's still this. It's like what you're up against. It's still the top 5% or top 10% because what I hear often is like, oh yeah, we're going through a bunch of change and we've got you. We're going to support you, but it's lip service, and at the end of the day, and I'm not saying that people are doing that maliciously, but they're still stuck in the old way of thinking around, well, if the budgets are cut, we're not bringing in some sort of mental fitness guy or gonna be we're focusing specifically on a couple of these things that we've always focused on to try to boost sales or cut costs. So the people that I work with are typically the ones that are kind of ahead of the curve, probably the ones that you're talking to as well, that see, wait a second. I mean, that doesn't make sense. Like that, the way we've been working is not working anymore. We've got to do different things. And or they may see, well, if athletes are, we've all seen this in like top level athletes. It's not their physical skill set usually that holds them back. It's when their mind starts to unravel on the tennis court. Like you see it right away, right? So it's interesting because it's for me, it's those clients that they're usually performance based, but they care and they also value the fact that I don't need to see a bunch of data. It just intuitively makes sense. When the team and I also individually am feeling at my best, then I'm flowing, things are happening, and we all win.
A really interesting twist to that thought here, though, is there's studies out there showing that it was like 90% of people who are neurodivergent are getting all of the benefits from artificial intelligence. Like there's a small
Oh,
cluster of people
really?
that really get it. And yeah, it was a crazy stat. I gotta ask Jamie to dig that one up later.
Jamie,
But
I love it. That's so
it's a
good.
thing. I was at a creative talk out at Memo Fest in Saskatoon with George Strombolopagus. Is that how you pronounce his name? And a bunch
Oh,
of
yeah, yeah,
others. And
yeah.
yeah, I was up on stage and I pulled up all these stats and slides, and I was like, "Did you know that it's roughly 5 to 15% of the general population is neurodivergent?" And I'm like, "Do you know what percentage of people in the creative industry is?" And Aaron's like, "I don't know." And like, just keep hitting go, and the numbers are going bigger, 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 all the way like
Yeah, yeah.
50% within creative. And then when you marry creative plus entrepreneurship, it's closer to 70%.
Wow.
And so, from all the people that I'm working with on the AI side, it's funny because the ones that I'm seeing that are probably the most successful, the fastest adopters, they also like outside of their little bubbles where they're surrounded with their other ADHD friends, where they feel normal. They're outliers, and I would say they're living fairly mentally unfit lifestyles.
Mm,
They're very unbalanced. Entrepreneurs often swing from workaholism to other imbalances in their life
yeah.
but they're the ones who are crushing it with the change that is required to succeed in AI. So it's almost like being mentally unfit for a certain type of the audience is an advantage going into this
Sure.
AI age. So there's a bunch of weird things going on there to talk about.
Yeah. That is interesting. I wonder where how that would play out at the end, or because eventually it has to catch up to people. I did a series with KPMG at one point in out of Australia, with specifically their startup division. So it was they worked uh, almost exclusively with early stage founders, and we did this interview series in a white paper that looked at how can you be or does your mental if you are a mentally fit founder, does that actually impact your financial fitness? And what's the take from early stage investors? So I interviewed a bunch of early stage investors and ran them through some surveys. So we had some quant data as well. And it kept coming back over and over again. I mean, you can feel when a founder is up there pitching for investment in a survival state of mind, like they can't make paycheck next month if you don't close the round, or the one that is, confident, calm. There might be still stresses there. I mean, there for sure are still stresses. Anyone running their own company would appreciate that. But they picked up the fact that the ones that were emotionally regulated and so forth, and those were the ones that would have higher rates of funding. So it's just I don't know. There's something it's interesting the stats there, but again, like I said, I wonder how that plays out in the long run if it continues, if they just burn out and then the company's toast, at one point. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think one big thing that's required to survive in the age of AI is you need the ability to learn a bunch of things really quickly. And one thing that
Yeah.
people with ADHD do is they can hyper focus on stuff that they're interested in and just spend hours and hours and forget about like,
Oh, yeah.
oops, I forgot that proposal or forget. They just tune out the whole world and then go deep.
Go.
And
Yeah, yeah.
that's really hard for the general population to do. And I think since the pandemic and with the economy and tariffs and just mental health issues and family and divorce, like everyone is just, it feels like everyone's in survival mode. So to find the piece of time to invest is probably one of the biggest challenges. And I think the ability for
Yeah.
neurodivergent people to really hyper focus and just tune out and go deep, I think that's probably the biggest advantage. But yeah, I would say I am feeling probably more mentally balanced and mentally fit today than I have been since 2020, since the pandemic hit. It's been getting better, and my strength as a leader is improving as a result. I'm not questioning the
Yeah.
correlation between success and mental fitness, but I just sort of throwing it out there that I think you need to be a little bit weird right now to fully embrace
Oh, yeah,
what's
for sure.
happening. Like some of the most
Yeah.
brilliant people I'm working with, I'm like, take them out of their little friend bubble. I'm like, you're a weirdo and you're killing it right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, because I think even in just entrepreneurship in general, like, you need to be a little bit, you know, like, crazy, I guess, to just even accept the fact that the probabilities are just so stacked against you that this is gonna work, right? So, I see this tech as not that it's not gonna work, but there's just so much uncertainty, right? And their ability to just function in uncertainty. Most of us have a real hard time with that, so, yeah. What are you seeing though, Mike? Like, I guess because we've talked about this before, but there seems to be such a disconnect or gap around almost like mainstream messaging of what AI is, and it's like people are kind of putting their toes in the water around like, okay, yeah, I can, use it to write my emails maybe a little bit faster, correct my grammar, and like, look at my calendar, like kind of like surface level, high level stuff. But then you listen to I just interviewed a New York Times guy used to work at the New York Times, and he's doing this whole series on it's called The Last Invention, and he's just going right from the start to now and like how we got to kind of where we're at right now. And they're talking about whole other levels of AI. Like what you're saying, it's like what's behind the architecture of the technology and so forth. Like most people have no idea. But, like, how do we bridge that gap, I guess, so that we don't get just completely left in the dust and be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm
Well,
automating my email."
I think first, let's try to illustrate what that gap is. So I would say 90% of people now have been playing around with AI, and like 80 something percent of Fortune 5000s have adopted AI and blah, blah, blah. All the stats are there. But when you really drill down on that, it just means that they're using ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, and they're using it for some basic word processing functions or polish my
Yeah,
emails or research for this report before I run to a sales meeting. That's it. And for me, that is just one small slice of a whole spectrum of what AI can do. I heard this somewhere that like older people or normal people are see it as an executive assistant that will help them with some copywriting. The younger people or the neurodivergent are seeing it as a whole new operating system, a whole new way of thinking. So, like today, I was in a meeting with a client, and we built a whole new piece of software in an hour and launched it, and took her entire business model that was in her head that she normally charges thousands of dollars for, and turned it into an agent in an
yeah.
hour. And
Well,
or the way that you can infuse intelligence into all of your processes, into your software, into your systems, into your you could automate roughly 90% of most professional service businesses today, 90%. And people are not yet waking up to that reality. They're still seeing it as like a basic word processing, Grammarly copywriting editing tool, and it's so much more
yeah,
than that. And the spread between what people think it can do and what it can actually do is growing exponentially. And there's a small little cluster of people out here, like 5%, 1 to 5%, that truly get it. And that group, if you talk to them, I'm in a forum with a bunch of them, we all feel completely overwhelmed and confused, and every day we wake up and we're just trying to make sense of what's going on. And so it's this
yeah.
really fascinating situation right now.
So what do you see playing out? Like, I mean, here's the $1,000,000 question, I guess. Like, do we is it we just have to continue to have conversation and show people what's possible, then everyone starts to become naturally curious and kind of the like you said, like that top 5%, kind of pull people through? Or are we just approaching this completely wrong? Like, I don't know, maybe there's not an answer for this right now, but I mean, it just seems weird that there's such a gap like that, you know?
Yeah, some of the
And
questions
it's
that
creating stress. I think it's creating so much stress because when we don't know, right? When we're not educated on this stuff, then there's just more and more uncertainty. And then I feel like that's where a lot of the fear is just sparking at rapid rates.
yeah, and then fear, well, you can probably speak more to this, but where there's overwhelm and fear and lack of understanding, that creates stress, and then the brain and the body doesn't want to deal with stress, and so it does things. It creates biases and cognitive distortions so that you can fall asleep at night. And there's a whole bunch of weird stuff going
Yeah.
on right now with all the sort of overwhelm. Um,
Well, and in industries, Mike, I'm seeing this in the publishing world because I mean, I'm working on the second book, and the publishing world is in a huge state of fear where there's and I get it, like, I understand where their fear is coming from, but at the same time, it's like they're talking about, when you upload a manuscript or whoever like, you've gotta check a box that no AI was used to create this manuscript, which it feels to me as like, so it's like, so you don't use the internet. It's and this is it seems so obvious. It's such a fear response from an entire huge legacy industry.
do you want to hear a really scary thought? So part of it was like the huge opportunities. How can we get the 95, the 98% to catch up to the top 1 to 5%? Because it's just like you see a developer that's running at 10 to 50x faster than another developer that was just 20 to 30% faster doing some autocomplete, and they're just talking to agents in their pajamas and building enterprise code that's secure. And you talk to this group like, oh, we can't do it, it's not secure. I'm like, that's not what these guys are saying. And it's like, and so like the big opportunity, how do we get the 95% to come over here and experience this world of abundance? Well, scary thought is like, what happens when that happens? Like, we don't
Yeah.
need that many accountants or that many coaches or that many marketers, that many software developers. I don't know. We'll see. But there's also another thing is I don't think that there's time.
Mm,
I think the 95% will be too slow to catch up. And I say this in some of my talks. It's not like technical change of the past where say you were a plumber who learned how to use CRMs and Google Local and Google Ads before the other guy who's using credit card swipers and carbon copy, phone calls and yellow pages. You can still exist in both of those worlds before. But I
Yeah.
truly believe that, it I don't know at what point, but maybe when it's 5 or 10% of software developers have 50x themselves, the remaining 90-95% will no longer be useful. And then we're going to be dealing with mass unemployment or job change or role change. I fear, like, I don't think you can understate the impact that this is about to have on the planet. And we're seeing it at the edges. And those of us deep in the know, like, you hear a lot of this bubble talk right now, and this is all,
Yeah.
but anybody who really knows what's going on, saying the reason that all the people with all the data and all the money are throwing their hundreds of billions of dollars into this is because they can see with clarity that this is working. This is not some sort of like, ooh, we'll build it like,
Yeah.
it's like laying fiber optic around the world through the beginning of the .com thing. Like, we knew that that was going to pay off. They knew that with certainty before they made that. And maybe there's some uh, bubbles, that financial related bubbles like stock market and overinvestment into for brief moments of time, and you'll see all sorts of crazy distortion, just like I'm sure there's all
Mhm.
sorts of problems when the printing press rolled around or when the looms arrived. But there's
Oh, yeah.
absolutely no debate here about the need for data. Like, all of these AI models are compute constrained. Every day there's a new model finding a new use case for AI. The scary thing is, like, do we need the 95% to catch up with what's actually going on? Because the 5% in the know here are just watching the news and listening to all these people, like, say, give whatever reason for why they don't want to adopt it. And we're like, this is not going to play out well for that group.
Yeah. Yeah. So what what I mean, what do we do there? I mean, it comes I'm
What do we
lost
is it
lost for words here.
Elysium? What's that movie? There's going to be like this elite ruling class, and it's going to be mass separation between the AI haves and the AI have nots. And I'm legitimately concerned about that future. I hope that I make the cut, and that
Well,
we can
yeah.
do good for the group that doesn't. But we are rapidly spiraling towards a world where, like, professional service companies are 90% can be automated today, right now, so that you could 10x the world's accountants, 10x the world lawyers, 10x the world marketers. Does the world need all of that? Well, sure, there's going to be new jobs and new opportunities that emerge. We're going to automate the stuff below, and we can spend more time and higher value relationships and all sorts of things. But at some point, I'm a little concerned about where all these jobs are going to come from through all this disruption.
Well, I think at least for me, the part that brings a little bit of maybe mental stability or calm in the whole scenario is just we don't know. Like we're going through what we know is there's things are changing, and we're at least for our era, this is probably the biggest thing we've ever gone through, right? So I mean, it's like anything. You can choose to look at this in complete fear and anxiety, or you can do the best you can to kind of pull your head out of the sand and educate and learn and see what's going on and do everything you can to kind of keep your humanity part. I mean, I think that is a big thing in general as we move forward. We still are humans, but from that place, then you start you potentially see where you can go or where you fit in, and that's the part I think that we don't know. Like, I don't know, is it just changing jobs, or are we just going to live differently? It could be that too. Who knows? But no one wins if you just fear the change that because it's not a matter of the genie. Like, is the genie going to come out of the bottle? No, it's out, right? And it's out far more than what most people even can fathom. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I see it like I see no downside, at least in taking the perspective of I'm gonna strap into the roller coaster and see where it goes and try to enjoy the ride. Because
We,
what's the other
you're
alternative?
you're an entrepreneur, and it's funny. The very first interview I did, probably about 3.5, 4 years ago, when I started this workshop series called the AI Wake Up Call, CBC Radio interviewed me, and the analogy I used, I still use today, just on the spot. I'm like, okay, she's like, sort of trying to get a vision of what this sort of future is like. And I'm like, okay, imagine we're on a train. It's a runaway train. It's going 400 kilometers an hour down a track in a tunnel. We can't turn. And in the distance, there's a bright white light. and we're accelerating exponentially towards that light. Oh, and we don't have brakes. And we don't know if that white light is a world of abundance or the end of the human species, but we don't have brakes and we can't slow down. So might as well enjoy the ride. And she's like, wow, that's a pretty scary thought. Like,
That's when they pulled the plug on the feed, and the interview's
exactly.
done.
Yeah, you're scaring all the seniors on our CBC channel. Um,
Yeah.
but
But yeah, that's what it is though,
yeah,
right? And it's yeah. I mean, I I don't see another perspective really to take otherwise, because you just spiral out of control, and it's just not fun for anyone. It you
there's no way to stop it, and you might as well maintain a positive mindset because I mean, entrepreneurs know that the only way that you can be an entrepreneur is when like shit collapses, you lean into the learnings and you stay positive and you make a plan
yeah,
and you move forward. Otherwise, you wouldn't be an entrepreneur because we always have those roller coaster rides. So that's why I think entrepreneurs are also ideally positioned for this transition because through rapid change, we're doing little tests that are failing and there's ups and downs on this journey through that roller coaster towards that blinding white light. And the mental capacity of entrepreneurs and creative professionals are ideally suited for what's coming next.
yeah, for sure. So what are there any, just for people listening, that, let's say, I mean, they are curious, right? And they are, let's just make the assumption they're using AI in the way that 95% of the world is using it. Like, what would be some of the questions that you would leave with those people to just to think about? You know, you don't have to make a decision today, but just start asking some other questions and so forth, and work your way down so you can be on that train.
One technique I like to do is using AI as the extra person in the room, and having
Yeah.
debates with AI and having it just start talking to it about the future. And that can be really powerful. If you just open up ChatGPT, you go to advanced voice mode and you give it context. First, I want you to interview me, ask me about my role, my job, my profession, my expertise, my thoughts about the future. Then I want you to act as an AI futurist, a strategist that has expertise in predicting the future of artificial intelligence. And I want you to sort of project forward 10 years and look back and have that sort of conversation with AI
Yeah.
can really be really eye opening. There's also, I mean, some of the talks that I give, like they're a bit old now. The AI wake up call. Most people are aware that this is a runaway train, but they're still not seeing how fast and how far this thing is going to go. So there's lots of great YouTube influencers that I just would start following and build some habits around, like at least 15-30 minutes a day of learning and getting that exposure out there.
Yeah.
If you really want to get uh, freaked out, or not freaked out, or maybe a bit more excited about the future, like David Shapiro and post labor economics and the meaning economy, like he's so smart. He's already passed. He's like, this is inevitable. I'm now working on everything after the fact when humans don't have to work anymore. And he's developing all his thesis. Like, and he was one of the pioneers here that was sort of explaining where AI was going. And he just very quickly went forward 3 to 5 years and moving beyond. So there's some great
Yeah.
people to follow on YouTube. There's some great thought exercises you can have back and forth with AI. But yeah, eventually you'll have this sort of like aha moment. You'll have a hard time sleeping that night, and it's hard to turn back. It's kind of like the red pill, blue pill thing. Once you've had the pill, you're just like, wow, why am I still shuffling paper around here? And like
Yeah.
what I'm doing today has no meaning tomorrow.
Yeah. But I mean, I think if you're having the conversation, that's the key. Like, you've got to experiment, got to ask the questions, be curious, and then just use the tools to do so. And I'd also suggest talk to people from different industries and from different age demographics as well. Because I'm even seeing like the generation that's coming out of college and university right now. I can't remember who I was speaking to, but they were sharing like a lot of them are waking up and the first thing they do is they're checking in with their AI, like just as like a personal coach in a way, because they know them so well. And it's like a bit of a pep talk, and like they're using it for their mind. I mean, that's it, and it seems like it's a, I don't want to overgeneralize, but the whoever, I can't remember who I was speaking to, or who, maybe I heard it on a show. But they're like, this kind of the norm in that age demographic, right? So it's just, and then like I did some interviews for for my Substack, Better Questions, around I just brought Einstein in and Rumi in one room and just said, "Hey guys, this is where we're at. This is kind of how I'm feeling, how the rest of the world's feeling. Like if you guys were here in present day, I mean, you've lived through big shifts in society. How would you be approaching this? Like what would be the questions you'd be asking?" And it all just kept coming back to like humanity. And Einstein for sure was around, like he was channeling back, the fact that he made a decision at one point with the atomic bomb that he was, going to sign off on paperwork saying he supported the program. And he's like, I really regretted doing that. But then when all of that happened, he spent the rest of his, like the tail end of his life, being on committees for trying to regulate, arms and weapons and so forth. So like his whole message to me was, you guys are going to screw this up in some capacity, but there's also ways to make it better. I mean, this is when you're going this fast, like, there are ways to slow down and learn from the mistakes and so forth, which I found is interesting, given what he lived through and so forth. So
The slowing down part is challenging because of the prisoner's dilemma. There's no way to stop this. Well, there is a way to stop it. You would have to get, first of all, a global police state where every internet connection, every phone call, everything is monitored in every country worldwide. Like basically we'd have to be like Beijing worldwide.
yeah,
And we need to have a global consensus between Russia, China, USA, North Korea. Every human being on the planet would have to be a part of this. That is a requirement to control this. So
yeah,
is that world state possible? So, and then if not, then as long as that does not exist, you have a prisoner's dilemma where whoever solves this equation first will rule the entire world. So they will throw everything they have at it to get there first. So I personally don't believe
yeah,
that you can stop it. But yeah, something you talked about there, about talking to different people. I was just yesterday I was speaking to a small group of Ace tech founders. I think they're startups around 1 million in tech in Vancouver. It was a room of 8 or 9 of us, and it was shocking the difference of that room. Like they were for sure in that 1 to 5%, where I was sort of getting a feel for the room and sort of going around and seeing where their opportunities were to scale. And one guy was talking about like PR outreach, and I was asking a few questions, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we've automated this through Apollo, and we have the drip email automated. We chat them up with agents on this, and then agents do this, this, and this, and the whole thing." And he just talked like nothing, and I was
yeah,
like, why am I here? Like, so there's
yeah,
some people, like young people that are in tech, entrepreneurs that just get it. And I remember that, in entrepreneurship, they always say, surround yourself with like mentors, peers, get into an EO or YPO forum. Like those groups will lift you up. So you said talk to different people. I would say try to get at least, you want to have a friend with a truck. You want to have a friend with a boat. I think you want to have a friend
yeah,
who's like going
yeah,
off the deep end of AI, and listen to them. They're not as weird as you may think they are. There's a lot
yeah.
you can learn from those people.
Yeah, I agree, and it's like the age, like when you're working, whenever you're working on something new, or if you want to be a part of this, is the other part of it, like legitimately and building this ecosystem, like figure out where you want to be living and who you want to be around, and surround yourself with those people. I mean, of course, with tech, like we can live anywhere and everywhere. But I just had someone on the show recently from True Ventures, and they're going pretty deep on AI, of course, and support early stage founders. And Tony Conrad was the venture capitalist, and he's like, it feels it doesn't even feel like the internet bubble in San Francisco right now. It's like a whole other world. Like, because I asked him, there was a bit of people were leaving San Francisco not too long ago. He's like, oh no, if you're building something
They're
in
back.
AI, you want to be hanging out here. Like you can feel it. It's just it's in the energy, it's in the environment, and you can have pockets of that in other places in the world. And I think that's where like you want to surround yourself with those people wherever you are, right? Find your tribe and your hub. And then, because then I think then that's a natural way not to be in the doom and gloom and feel like the world's just gonna, evaporate. Like you're with people that are growth minded and asking the questions and trying to just see where this is gonna go, and like treating it as more of an adventure than the opposite.
Yeah, and people have to recognize this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. This is like the equivalent of, I don't know, say back depending on your age when you first learned about the internet. You know, it's not like, oh, I'm going to learn how to use Google Chrome, or I'm going to learn how to advertise on Facebook, or I'm going to learn Google Ads, or I'm going to learn about content, or I'm going to learn about social media, or SEO, or email, or e-commerce. Or like, if you look at all of the layers that evolved from internet and how deep it was, now imagine it's 1995 and you're about to
Yeah,
embark on that journey as a young professional. Would you be like, I'm just going to dive in and learn it all? Like, there's so many, you know, to learn about IP addresses and network and security and SSL, and you want to learn like the 10-20% of a wide range of things so that you can understand the big picture. Then I think you need to zoom in on a specific specialty that's more narrow than you've ever imagined, because the field is expanding rapidly and you have to concentrate. So
yeah,
if that's the type of learning that you are embarking on, if you're just saying like, oh, maybe there's more than ChatGPT like helping me with my essays, you know, it's about habits. For me, it's about, if you can put anchor things in. Like for me, it's just like I brush my teeth in the morning and I'm doing squats, then that helps my mountain biking, which
yeah,
anchor. Like, things have to be anchored, whether it's fitness or mental health or learning, and especially when it's a long journey like this. So I think like the more time that you can commit to it, the better. But from my experience, because there's so much to learn across such a vast new operating system, it has to be habitual, small, consistent
yeah,
pieces over a longer time, anchored to things, and make it happen. And if you put in 30 minutes a day for the next 3 months, you will look back 3 months ago and be like, wow, I'm so glad I did that. And you'll probably change it to an hour a day.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, you're speaking your that this is the same kind of philosophy I speak about with mental fitness. Like if you're trying to dial in the mind and try different practices, it's the micro shifts, it's the check-in with yourself when your coffee's brewing, like anchor it to things that you're already doing and just take small bites and they add up. So amazing. I mean, we can go we'll probably have maybe we should do a series of this as we continue to go, but just to wrap, like any final comments from you, Mike?
Well, I think it's more of a question for you. So I think mental fitness is critical before you get into rapid change. So, what would you say to my people that don't know about your frameworks? Like, what are the top tips that you have for somebody that's about to embark on that crazy transformational journey that I'm selling?
Yeah. I I would keep it to one question, and it's just, what's the one thing, the one non-negotiable that I can do that naturally slows down my mind and puts my mind in a quiet place where I can think and process? Everyone's got something. And I mean, you're from Squamish, you're doing squats so you can mountain bike. Like for me, the mountain bike is that thing as well. Like I feel fantastic there. Um, and I know when I'm at a limit or it feels like I'm not, breathing properly, or I just feel like I'm running and so forth. I'm like, I just need to get on the bike, slow down, get outside and get into nature and just reset. And it's amazing what just a bit of time like that will do. But everyone's got their thing, like whatever it is, you just identify what it is, and it doesn't have to be more complicated than that, right? Like you don't need a 7-day silent retreat to do that. Just figure out the one thing.
And I would say one thing to support that on the AI transformation side is this is a change management exercise. As much, it's not about technology, it's about change and people and mindset. So even though there might be a really high ROI automation just around the corner, we don't usually start there when it's change management. We usually go in and ask the question, what is the one thing about your job that you absolutely hate doing? Or ask like
Yeah,
three things, and we automate some of those, because if you can take those off of your plate, that frees up some time for them to like slow down and follow more of those better mindset practices. So I think if you combine
totally.
AI to free up your time from the stuff you hate so that you can focus a bit more on some deeper thinking, that could really help prepare you for the massive change that's coming right around the corner.
Well, and don't again, this is just coming back from the insights that I'm getting from the people of the past when having these AI conversations, but don't forget about the humanity part. So like the leaders and the CEOs and so forth who are, yeah, they're seeing the change. They want to be a part of it. They're doing their thing, but their whole team may not be there. So this doesn't mean that you have to do this massive change management program, but at least have the question, like bring the team together and be like, okay, here's where we're going. How's everyone feeling? Like, what's the attitude and the mentality that we want to adopt as a team to go through this process together versus just forcing it down like, hey, we've got 15 different tools and here's the new flow. you know, Two different approaches. One, I would argue, I mean, I can't put data behind this, but just intuitively makes sense that it'd go a hell of a lot better if the whole team's on board and not completely freaked out.
Agreed, 1000%.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said.
Oh man, until the next chat, brother.